Welcome to Looks Good on Paper, the podcast that's flipping the script on traditional hiring. We're your hosts, I'm Woody.
And I'm Anita.
And in each episode, we dive into why CVs and the so-called perfect candidate can be misleading. We'll be speaking with industry experts to uncover how skills, potential, and real-world experience should be the focus when making hiring decisions. We're here to challenge the norm and rewrite the rules of hiring. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Looks Good on Paper podcast. Today we are joined by Adam Gellert. Adam is on a mission to build the greatest marketplace of pre-vetted, diverse, high-potential candidates and companies. He's reshaping the job application process with candidate experience and helping companies hire their most passionate teammates. I am going to hand it over to you, Adam. I'm sure you can do a better job of sharing who you are and what you do and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate the intro, Anita. Yeah, I've been in the recruiting space for 2 decades now, making sure that companies hire their top performers, the best people that they possibly can. I run an agency called the Linkus Group out of Toronto, Canada. We basically work with companies that go from 1 to 250 plus people for all niche, hard to fill roles. We also created a talent marketplace that was formerly called Hipo, and we just rebranded to Hipo for high potential. I'm really looking to just be known as the number one place where companies can go to hire their high performing talent at the earliest stages. I also did like the talent help list. I was part of the HRPA committee and Disrupt HR. So I'm just very involved in the community and just really care about founder and candidate success.
Love that. Yes, you are a very big part of the Toronto tech community, and we appreciate all the stuff you've done for us, being from Toronto myself as well. So why don't we jump in? The first question, it'll be kind of like a rapid fire. What's the biggest hiring mistake companies keep making, even though it's clearly not working?
A mistake that I think is avoidable is really speed. Companies really struggle to understand the business problem that they actually need to solve for, who the right person is, do that work up front to plan ahead. We always get asked like, hey, can you help us hire someone? When did you need to hire them? As of yesterday, you probably don't need to hire 10 people right now. You could actually probably get away with 1 or 2 people. Let's try to figure out what the business problem is that you need to solve and who are the right people. I usually put it like this. Recruiting is all about getting the best possible person, so the highest quality in the fastest amount of time for the lowest cost. Most people are like, oh, you got to give something up, and I don't think that you do. So the mistake is not thinking through that and not running fast enough when they know what they're looking for.
For sure. And just, have you seen any good examples of how people and companies can figure out the right fit before they go to market with a job description?
One good way is stay interviews or exit interviews to figure out what happened if it was a role that they already have hired for and see what they thought was important wasn't actually what the person in the role thought was important. You have to get really good at extracting information, human behavior, and how people communicate to extract the right information. You need people to come with transparency, trust, and good attitude to identify that. Just understanding that business problem by asking a lot of questions. If it's a role that a company hasn't filled before or done, it's kind of net new. Maybe ask companies that are doing what they're doing, what they've done in the past, maybe some mistakes. I've worked with 500 plus founders, so I really have seen the good, bad, and the ugly and can foresee a lot of mistakes that people make and help them avoid that. Yeah, if you don't have somebody that you have access to that has been there, done that, just making sure that you're being realistic about your expectations and goals of the role. Good examples of this is a lot of companies think that they need to make it as hard as Harvard or as hard as Google to make it into their company, and that's not what they are. As much as they want to think that they are right now, they're not.
So I guess the next thing is, what's a hidden bias companies unknowingly have even when they think they're progressive in their hiring?
Companies have all kinds of bias, a lot of unconscious bias too, in terms of what they think is going to be the right candidate and where they might come from. It could be job hopping, which is not necessarily going to be a terrible candidate. It really depends on where they came from, what happened. There's all these biases that happen based on what you think. Maybe that they need somebody with a sports background or something specific that they've always done. And they're always kind of comparing it to somebody else that's done well in the role, but they haven't had the context or the data to try other things in a closed experiment to really understand who they should be hiring. The bias really comes down to what I think would be a good hire based on maybe what I've been told or what I've tried in the past that didn't work, and just like holding that, and it kind of tends to set them back from actually hiring the right people and moving forward when there's potential right in front of them.
How much of the role of an external recruiter has changed from being, oh no, we needed to hire somebody yesterday, what candidate can you send me now, to, hey, this is the process that you should be following, here's how we can talent map if you partner with us properly. The biggest organizations that don't typically like have that resource. So how much are you seeing in the market you're spending time actually advising as opposed to recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, look, I always say like 90% of recruiting is onboarding, and then the other 10% is like a lot of consulting. A big portion of that is absolutely the consulting, and everyone wants to avoid hiring mistakes. So hiring is ultimately and in reality risky inherently. It's risky for the candidate, it's also risky for the company. And so you want to come with enough knowledge to understand, how do I minimize this risk in the best possible way? And I think you need those 10,000 hours. You need to understand all the nuances. You need to understand what the trend is, what people are looking for a year from now for retention. If you're not paying attention to the hiring landscape, then you might be able to hire for right now, but that person might leave in 3 months from now if you just don't understand like the nuances of how recruiting has changed. So it is all advising. And I typically say that sourcing is the easiest part of recruiting, especially now with given like the way that the industry has changed. The thing that I don't think can be replaced is understanding the match and the fit and like what companies should actually be hiring for, and paying attention to changes in those trends, making sure that you repel and attract the right person so that you're hiring the right person. So everything that kind of happens after the sourcing part, I think very soon you'll be able to hit a button and like know the best people for the job. I think that sourcing part will go away.
Totally agree. I think the real job of an external recruiter is going to be helping an organization build a talent pipeline that easily delivers the talent that you need, but does it in a way that, helps hiring managers who aren't, as you say, hiring professionals. They don't have the 10,000 hours. They shouldn't ever have to need the 10,000 hours, because people like yourself should be delivering the talent to their business. So, yeah, interesting.
Thank you. And we're on to our second last question. What's the most surprising hire you've ever made or placed? And how did their success defy what looked good on paper?
You are not your resume, and resumes are a poor predictor of success. They are not a great way to hire someone, but what people tend to lean on because it's what they know best, and they don't know how to hire without one. A lot of the problem. Ironic, because most of the best hires actually come from references, like somebody that you already know or you worked with before. The data's there, right? You move forward without a resume, and that's where most of the successes come from. And most people that complain is like, hey, Adam, I hired someone. They look great on paper, but they didn't do it really well. And I just continue to remind them why that didn't work. And people just continue to rely on that. There's been so many examples. I would say oftentimes I've helped companies hire people that they went in for like 70K and ended up getting like 500K.
What?
So
It's amazing.
yeah, it's just in terms of like the potential was there, and obviously the company like flourished in that potential. Just to give you an example of like, you want an example of somebody who like looked good but didn't do well.
You could do that one too. That sounds fun.
I mean, I don't know if I've been involved in any of those. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
only involved in the good ones.
Yeah, good
it's
one.
Where it's
for
like,
professional reputation, you don't know any bad candidates, Adam, obviously.
I've never been involved directly in
But you heard a story
in a
once.
great resume gone bad. I've done the opposite, but I've heard these stories that I'm trying to honestly just trying to think through the opposite. Like I would be able to say like, okay, somebody didn't look good on paper, or they came into an interview and said like they were a bit monotone, and we hired them anyways, and they ended up being like really great. Part of that process of figuring that out was the way that we dug into that potential issue with the candidate. I'm
Or
sure I
like
have
what,
like
like
a
our
ton of stories I've
favorite
heard.
U.S. president says, many such cases. There's many such cases of those types of things, right? Like, I feel like I've even, as a hiring manager, when I run like marketing departments and things like that, I've had so many of that where they've come in and I'd be like, wow, this is not who I expected. Also, I took a chance maybe because the resume looked great, and they're gone after 3 months, and hours spent on onboarding and hiring hiring and the team and the psychological safety, all the things are disrupted because of it.
Yeah, definitely. People have told me that they hired somebody that ended up doing 3 other jobs and was just cashing checks.
Oof.
Obviously, they hired them based on their resume and how they showed up with each interview. Like, unfortunately, those mistakes happen. There are definitely times where people say that they've, had X amount of accomplishments. Actually, I think that's a really good example. A lot of people say that they'll have these accomplishments at a particular company, and that company might not be a challenger company. It might be an easier company, let's say, I don't know, Amazon or Apple, where they have a lot more resources than a smaller company. And so what actually got them those accomplishments was the team around them. And then if so, you assume that, okay, I'm going to take this person with all these accomplishments from a competitor, but I don't have those things available. And so they needed those things to be successful. So you just kind of have to see in an interview, dig behind the resume, like how much were you involved in this particular project?
Were you the leader in that
Yeah,
project?
were you
It's
the leader? Were you the executor? Can I talk to your customers about what involvement that you played in this particular role? Just like digging behind that doesn't have to take a long time to do, but that'll help.
Yeah, it's so true. I recruited for 11 years for salespeople, and I never saw a salesperson's resume that said, hey, yeah, I kind of missed Q1, and then Q2, I scraped the barrel, but it was actually a customer that my sales manager used to work with, and he gave it to me. And then, end of the year, we brought in an absolute whale as a business, and I just put that against my number on my resume. So it's so true. Like, the paper on face value is so difficult sometimes, A, to believe, and B, to like verify who did actually deliver what they delivered. And I don't know if you know this horrific stat, Adam, but 72% of people lie on their resumes, according to Business Insider, which I think that's pretty terrible for two reasons. One is, like, I'm already assuming when I see a CV or a resume that somebody's lied on it. And then number two, there's 28% of people that aren't lying. And like, guys, you should be lying probably because everybody else is. I'm judging you as if you are.
I've definitely heard that stat. I tell all my clients to like hire for what I call like tag, trust, attitude, and grit. And so
Amazing.
sometimes that like you have to kind of like learn trust can be given, but like you need to work with that person directly to make sure that what they're saying is truthful. And yeah, like you said, like nobody's going to kind of showcase like all their bloopers or like what they didn't do. And sometimes those can be great. Like they're learnings, like Mark Cuban was fired, like Jerry Seinfeld was fired. Like there's people that get fired for things that become super successful, but we just want to be transparent about like what happened, who was involved here. Is that going to be aligned to the next role? There's another stat, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I just heard this very recently actually, where you're like X times more successful if you bring the team you had with you instead of just coming on your own. Parlays to kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's also interesting, like, the trust. I love that tag, trust, attitude, grit. The trust that imagine I leave as a leader and I bring the whole team with me to my next place.
Trust.
Like, that's a great indicator of being a trusted individual, right? That they would actually go, yeah, I'm gonna jump ship and join you. So yeah, super interesting and very actionable.
The grit piece too, I think that if I've seen on a resume when I'm hiring, like someone taking initiative, doing stuff that way, like showing, exemplifying maybe in their day-to-day life as well, like, oh, I started this thing just for fun, I have this project, I do like seeing that type of autonomy, then that would lead itself to me feeling like I trust the individual when they come in a little bit more, right? That they have that desire and self-starter, right?
Yeah, like we're working on this marketing manager for a D2C product right now for a client of ours, like the sports equipment, and they like love that this person has explained their project that they did on the side, like their obsession with trying to move the industry forward. So it's like everything that you are involved with, do, or your experiences can add to that attitude.
For sure. And now for our last wildcard question, Adam. You and I have talked about this in the past, but you've been an outspoken advocate for the removal of CVs over time. And I just wanted to kind of see where you're at with that, if you think it's possible, and if you think that something like a big change, like removing the CV or decentering it from the hiring process, is actually something that we can do.
Ooh, this is juicy. you can only lead a horse to water. I mean, I don't think it can happen because I've been trying for the last decade. I just think that people inevitably fall back on what they know to be true. I think I'm optimistic just with LinkedIn being such a powerful tool, continuing to gain a ton of popularity. So I think like the live living resume where you can't lie, which is what we talked about before, everything's kind of out in the open. You can kind of be somewhat called out for your BS
Achievements.
or praised for the achievements that you actually did. I think that there's potential. I just don't see it on a mass adoption, unfortunately. When I was going around and pitching this resume-less world, maybe there was like 10% adoption on it. Well, the 10% were very interested. They were like, I love this. I can't wait. I don't hire with resumes. I don't even ask people to send me the resume. If they send it to me, I'll throw it out and tell them, show me something else. I'd rather see them have like a website or their own URL or whatever. So, and I know I've talked to a lot of people that are even in stealth mode right now trying to create something. And you guys obviously are building in that area. So I know that there's a lot of people that are passionate on and want to see it come out. There's two people here that have to come to the table. And I don't think educating people is going to help. I think it's just got to be something where it's going to be easier for them to do and like more obvious for them to do than they did before. Because I feel like people are always like, well, I looked at their resume and I thought they were going to be good. So that's like they use that as like their excuse
So
on why they make a
you
bad
don't get
hire.
fired for hiring IBM sort of
Yeah.
mentality, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
well, I use their resume. I think obviously I disagree, or maybe not obviously. I think the world will be
Same.
rid of resumes and CVs in the next 12 months.
12
What I do agree is like to your point of something's going to have to happen for that to become a reality. I think the scary thing is that what's going to happen is somebody's going to write a CV with AI, that person's going to get hired, and then some form of something bad, some form of litigation, all of a sudden that becomes like national news. I actually think there's going to be like a moment in time where people suddenly go, holy moly, we cannot use CVs anymore because they are just being written by AI and the people we're hiring are not the people that they say they are.
And then we'll see
That's what I
from
think.
there. I like that. And I can see even past that where it's a one big company will adopt it. And then we'll have a domino effect. And then we'll have people speaking out against it. Hopefully.
I mean, I'm Team Woody. Like, if you can make that happen in 12 months, I would be very happy. Trust me. I'm in your corner. I just,
Don't think it can happen. Yeah,
Fair.
it's 600 years, Adam, that we've got to change. Like, if it was invented in the 1400s, the CV, so it's quite entrenched, to say the least.
Well, thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and your opinions and insights, Adam. That's it for now. Thank you for being on the Looks Good on Paper podcast, and we look forward to seeing what you're building in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure, and shout out to both of you for going down this path.
So thanks for tuning in to Looks Good on Paper. We hope today's conversation helps you rethink what really matters when it comes to hiring. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your network, and stay tuned for more insightful discussions that are shaking up the entire hiring process. Catch us next time as we continue to challenge the status quo. Until then, remember, it's not what looks good on paper, it's what they can do.